6, 2025. Well, lots been happening here in the world, and so I want to kind of get into some of these points here. I mean, I guess first of all, the National Security Advisor Waltz has been moved, is going to be removed, and will be moving up to the UN ambassadorship. And of course, there's a dispute here whether he was being fired. It's interesting, a firing with what might be considered to be a promotion, at least politically. Perhaps not so much for influence, because I don't think the influence of the UN ambassador is that great. But after all, Lee Stefanik had to stay in the House, as I've long advocated, in order to maintain a majority. And so, given that, they had to replace this key position with somebody. And uh, I don't know. There are all kind of rumors on what might have been behind it. Was he done with the job they want him to do there? Was he not doing the job right? Was he working behind Trump's back? But if he's working behind Trump's back, then why give him a promotion? So I tend to think the press just wants to be negative, and probably it is just simply the fact that they were thinking of who would fill the UN ambassadorship job, and said, well, yeah, maybe that'd be a good place to put him. And I don't know whether Trump has exactly who he wants to put in that. For the moment, he's brought in Marco Rubio as the interim national security advisor while still holding the Secretary of State. And many things are developing here on other fronts. Of course, we have the crisis that we're not paying much attention to between India and Pakistan. That's heating up because of a Muslim terrorist group's massacre of some Hindus in Kashmir. And, well, let's hope that doesn't. These two are two nuclear armed states, although I tend to doubt they're going to start throwing nukes at each other over this. Let's hope. And hopefully even avoid a general war. But, there'll probably be some kind of retaliatory strike or something, perhaps. And that's another thing we have to keep focused on all the time, these issues. And of course, then the Ukraine war, well, some developments have occurred in that one. One of the interesting developments is that while it sounded like for briefly there that Trump had turned around and gotten sort of upset with Putin, now it turns out that Zelensky's turned around and rejected the Trump peace plan, and is absolutely refusing to make a deal on Crimea, and is demanding 100% return to the 1991 borders, which to me may have been a bit of a blunder, I think, on the part of the Russians to be as negative as they were with their Foreign Minister Lavrov's statements. They should have at least, I think, acted like they were game to make a deal, and probably eventually Ukraine would still reject it, and they would not be as, let's say, Trump wouldn't be as upset with them. Because now we're moving in the direction, apparently, of as what they call secondary sanctions, which means basically blackmailing countries not to buy anything from Russia, or else they can't trade with us. Those massive above 100%. I'm even hearing 500% tariffs. So, at any rate, so that's kind of what's cooking. If you like these videos, please give me a like, subscribe, and click the bell for notifications. Or you can follow me on Rumble. The address in the description below. So, yeah, the secondary sanctions. I think the Senate or somebody's working on these too, and I don't know. I don't know that they need a Senate bill or not. I don't know what flexibility Trump will have if they do pass them, but we'll watch that one. The real question in my mind is this coming as we're in the middle of negotiating these trade deals could be interesting. I mean, for example, we look at China, for example, who's basically with these 145% tariffs, essentially we're in a trade embargo against China. And ships and supplies are backing up. I think we're rapidly going to be seeing a downturn in deliveries. Probably see longshoremen being laid off, out west, in the California coast. So this is going to have some impact. And since a large number of the toys that the kids have are made in China, if they don't get it settled soon, maybe a bleak Christmas for the kiddies. So that's the kind of situation we're in. And what I've been still looking at is if we do impose secondary sanctions over this Ukraine issue on China, then China's going to have to make a choice between buying oil from Russia or just basically that nixes a trade deal. Um, Now, another development's happening, which may be favorable to all this, which is at least looks favorable, but for us, but maybe isn't, is that OPEC has been apparently increasing production, which is bringing down the price of oil. And that's a little bit of a mystery to me why they're doing this. Are they afraid of Trump? And that's I don't know if Trump really wants that. He sort of wants it, but like he often doesn't think two steps ahead in the chess game. Um, his other objective, as we well know, is to increase U.S. domestic production. But domestic production in the U.S. has really increased over the recent years because of advanced recovery techniques, which usually requires, I think, something like $60 a barrel to make it cost effective. So as they bring down the world price of oil, the incentive of U.S. oil companies and even having the capital incentives to do it to produce more oil here will be reduced. And I tend to think maybe that's what OPEC is thinking. They'll take less profit in the near term in order to keep us from enhancing our production to where we don't need them as much, or Europe doesn't, or whatever you want to put it. So I think this could be what might be afoot here. I'm not sure. I don't think it's that they're trying to do something to help Ukraine out at this point. I don't think that's their motivation. And of course, with increased production, if in fact we do put on secondary sanctions and everybody goes, okay, can't buy that Russian oil anymore, then they may be able to, well, it probably will stabilize the falling in prices, but it might make it affordable. Although we have to look at the amount, and also it's unclear to me exactly how much impact that's going to have. I mean, how dependent is Russia really on this, or can they simply suck it up, take another economic hit, and just keep on charging? Because the war seems to be turning a little bit in their direction right now, to say the least. And I don't know now that the Ukrainians are not, although they did sign the minerals deals, which maybe got Trump's favor there. I don't know. That's a good question. Now, the next thing is developing, which will happen before my next video, unless I do a special, is that the Ukraine is basically threatening an attack on Moscow during their Victory Day celebration and parade, which will occur on the 9th of May because they had their own separate surrender in World War II. We did ours with our generals, and then they did theirs with theirs a day later. But of course, since they're ahead of us in the calendar, that'll be occurring kind of in the middle of the night, our time. you know. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. There's a lot of world dignitaries that are supposed to be there. I mean, President Xi of China and a couple of people that are not too keen on the Ukraine side of things in Europe, and I think I don't know what the motive of India will be coming or not, because he now has the crisis with Pakistan to deal with. So we'll just have to wait and see how this all goes, and whether or not they actually get bombed. I mean, the other possibility is that this threat could all be a feint, and they're really going to go for the Cursed Bridge. I mean, there have been some series of drone attacks in that area recently, a couple of days ago, which may be depleting some of the air defense missile stocks in the area, and so maybe that's what's really afoot on that one. We're not sure. On the other hand, if they do somehow, and although the drones, I think, would be slow enough getting there that everybody could rush to safety if they really thought they were under threat. Even if they hit it, they probably wouldn't. They're very unlikely to actually get Putin. But they might very well get people, dignitaries in the crowd, and blow up the band and things like that. And all that would do, really more than anything else, is really get the Russians mad and give them some semi-legitimate excuse to really strike back harder at Ukraine. And so it's hard to know whether they're really going to do this or not, but it's something to be looking for before the next video to see what actually happens there. On the other hand, the idea it's a feint and going for the Cursed Bridge wouldn't surprise me either. They really have a big thing about getting that bridge. So anyhow, But so that's kind of that, and we'll just have to watch for that. Now, other developments, we we've got the energy situation, and of course the illegal immigrant situation. Trump is continuing to score a bunch of adverse rulings from these district judges, but I think sometime in mid-May we're going to have a hearing before the Supreme Court, which may address the ability of these judges to put on these nationwide stays that disrupt, you know, everything we're doing on deporting illegal immigrants and particularly the criminal ones. And of course, now Trump is talking about reopening Alcatraz, so that'll be. I wonder if this. I think a lot of what he does there is just to get the press, chasing their tail and not really. I mean, he may actually do it, but I don't how significant that would be or not. But I guess Alcatraz might be an alternative to El Salvador, huh? As a place of to put these people. So anyhow, that's kind of that. In the meantime, of course, we're still waiting for the next installment on the of Corbell and Knapp on the Matthew Brown whistleblower. And we'll so far what will happen. Now, the interesting thing that has been mentioned is he's has moved from the Pentagon in recent times to the State Department, and now that he's actually out in the open. And of course, Marco Rubio is the Secretary of State, so this guy is his employee. And you have to add to the fact that I believe at least the feeler they threw out at the end of the first video was that the arrow and the people in the program, if you will, have actually lied to these senators. So this could be interesting. He might want to actually have a personal conversation with this guy now, huh? I don't know. We'll have to see where that goes, but I thought I'd mention that too as I close this one out. And we'll, of course, as always, be wrapping this up, and we'll be posting it on YouTube and Rumble. And of course, the address of my social media accounts are in the description below. And you can see me posting most frequently on X between videos. So that'll be it for now.